The email arrived at 11:42 p.m. Final reminder, application closes tonight. Ethan stared at the screen, but didn't open it. His heart beat faster. Not from excitement, but from a familiar fear. What if I'm not ready yet? So instead of clicking the email, he closed his laptop. "I'll do it tomorrow," he whispered. The sentence sounded harmless, but it was the same sentence Ethan had been telling himself for nearly 10 years. Ethan was not lazy. In fact, no one prepared for life more than he did. His shelves were filled with books about success, discipline, creativity, and business. Folders on his computer carried names like Master Plan, Future Launch. When the time is right, he believed in one rule: start only when you are fully ready. So he kept preparing. Another course, another certification, another strategy. While others took messy first steps, Ethan perfected plans he never used. Preparation made him feel safe. Starting made him feel exposed. One evening, his old college friend Daniel visited. Within minutes, Daniel noticed the neatly stacked journals. "You still planning that studio?" he asked. Ethan smiled. "Of course, I just need a little more time." Daniel nodded slowly, then said something unexpected. Perfection is often just fear. Wearing expensive clothes." Ethan laughed it off, but the word stayed with him long after Daniel left. A week later, Ethan attended a local business event. As he walked through the hall, he suddenly froze. On the stage stood Marcus Hale, someone Ethan knew very well. Back in college, Marcus was average at best, impatient, careless, always rushing into things. Yet now people surrounded him, listening, applauding, congratulating him on the company he had built. Ethan felt a quiet discomfort rise inside him. On the drive home, one thought refused to leave. He started before he was ready. So why am I still standing still? That night, Ethan reopened the email. Last chance to apply. The opportunity he had been waiting for was finally here. His finger hovered over the trackpad. Then the voice returned. "Improve your portfolio first. Learn a little more. Wait one more year." The clock ticked louder than usual. 11:57 p.m. For the first time, Ethan asked himself a question he had avoided. For years, am I preparing for success or hiding from the possibility of failure? Midnight was approaching. The cursor blinked, and Ethan remained exactly where he had always been. Almost ready, but not started. At midnight passed. The application closed. Ethan watched the screen quietly, then shut the laptop. "It's fine," he told himself. "I'll be even more prepared next year." But something about that night felt different. For the first time, preparation didn't feel responsible. It felt like retreat. Days turned into weeks, yet an unfamiliar restlessness followed him everywhere, at work, during dinner, even in quiet moments before sleep. Then one afternoon, while scrolling through social media, he saw an announcement. Fellowship winners revealed. His chest tightened. Curiosity pulled him in. He clicked. Faces filled the screen. Designers from around the world smiling beside their projects. People who, just months ago, were exactly where he was, except they had applied. One name caught his attention. A woman he remembered meeting briefly at a workshop. She hadn't seemed extraordinary, just brave enough to try. Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. A heavy thought settled in. That could have been me. Not a dream, not someday. Now, for the rest of the day, everything felt slightly muted, like life was happening behind glass. That evening, he stopped by a small cafe he used to visit often. To his surprise, Daniel was there. After a short conversation, Daniel asked casually, "Did you apply?" Ethan hesitated, then shook his head. "I didn't feel ready." Daniel studied him for a moment, then said quietly, "Ethan, ready is not a feeling. It's a decision." The words landed harder than Ethan expected. He tried to defend himself. "I just don't want to fail." Daniel nodded, then replied with a calm honesty that was impossible to ignore. "But by not starting, haven't you already failed the life you wanted?" Silence settled between them. Not awkward, just painfully truthful. On his walk home, Ethan noticed something he had never paid attention to before. Construction had finally finished on a building near his apartment. He remembered when it was nothing but an empty lot. Then scaffolding appeared. Then noise. Then slow, messy progress. It had never looked perfect while being built, yet now it stood tall, solid, complete. A quiet realization formed in his mind. Nothing in the world begins perfectly. Everything grows into itself. Everything except the things that are never started. That night, Ethan opened one of his old journals. On the first page, a sentence he had written years ago stared back at him. One day, I will build something that matters. He traced the words with his finger. Years had passed since he wrote them, years of learning, planning, preparing, yet his life looked almost untouched by those dreams. And suddenly, a frightening question surfaced. If I keep waiting, will my entire life become preparation for a future that never arrives? For the first time, the idea didn't just scare him, it unsettled him. Because deep down, he knew time was not waiting with him. That night he barely slept. Somewhere between regret and clarity, Ethan understood something most people realize too late. Preparation feels productive, but unchecked, it quietly turns into procrastination. And procrastination has a price, not always visible, not immediate, but enormous. As the early morning light entered his room, Ethan sat up, his heart unusually steady. For years, he had feared failure, but now, he began to fear something far worse. Waking up decades later, still almost ready, and that thought was unbearable. 2 mornings later, Ethan received a message from Daniel. It was short. Coffee. Need to show you something. When Ethan arrived, Daniel slid a notebook across the table. Open it. Inside were rough sketches, messy ideas, half-formed plans. Ethan looked confused. These aren't finished. I know, Daniel said calmly. I started anyway. Then he added something Ethan would never forget. Your first step will never be your best step, but it might be the step that changes your life. On the way home, those words echoed in his mind. For years, Ethan had been waiting for confidence. But what if confidence only came after starting? That afternoon, he did something unusual. He stopped preparing and opened a blank document. No master plan, no perfect strategy, just a beginning. His hands felt slightly shaky as he created his first public design page and uploaded 3 of his works. They weren't flawless, but they were real. After hovering over the button for nearly a minute, he clicked publish. Nothing dramatic happened. No applause. No instant success. Just silence. Yet inside him, something shifted. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel stuck. He felt in motion, and he realized something powerful. Starting doesn't require readiness. It requires courage. That night he slept peacefully. Not because everything was certain, but because he had finally stepped into his own life instead of watching it from the sidelines. Weeks passed. Nothing extraordinary happened overnight. But slowly, things began to move. One message turned into a small project. One project led to another. Ethan was still learning. But now he was learning while doing, not while waiting. One evening, while organizing his desk, he noticed the old notebooks labeled, "When I'm ready." For the first time, he smiled and closed them. He no longer needed permission from perfection, because he finally understood something most people realize too late. You don't become ready by waiting. You become ready by beginning. Months later, Ethan walked past a construction site near his apartment. Workers were building floor by floor. Noisy, messy, imperfect. Yet every day the structure rose higher. And it hit him. No building waits to be perfect before it is built. Why should a life? So if you have been preparing, learning, planning, ask yourself one honest question. Are you truly getting ready? Or just hiding behind preparation? Remember this, a year from now, the biggest pain will not be failure. It will be the chances you never took. Start before you feel confident. Start before everything is clear. Start because life does not reward those who prepare forever. It rewards those who begin.